Hi crafters, this is Marianne from MA Designs. Welcome to the channel and thank you so much for joining me. This is my first ever video, so let's see how things go. Today I'm going to show you what I managed to make with a kit that I've had in my stash for a really long time. This is the card making kit called Say It With Flowers from Spectrum Noir by Crafter's Companion. It's part of their Colorista range and it's aimed at people who enjoy colouring as part of the crafting. This card pack has got 6 cards that you can colour yourself, all along a floral theme. There are 6 cards made of paper that's designed to work well with the Colorista coloured pencils. I will use those pencils on some of these. And there's also 6 really good quality envelopes in the pack and 6 self-adhesive inserts as well. So I'll just flick through them here just to show you the different designs, some of which I've already started colouring ages ago. I mean literally years ago, maybe even 3-4 years ago. They're partially foiled outlines, so look at that shimmer, they're fabulous. They look beautiful even before you colour them. So there's a flower there, and look at this cute bee. This bee is just adorable, he's my favourite. I don't actually have footage of me making that card, but if you stay till the end of the video you'll see photos of all of the finished cards. So I'm going to start today by using the kit as intended. Colouring a card with the Colorista pencils. I bought these online long after I actually bought the card kit. They're a more budget friendly set of pencils. There are definitely higher end ones out there. They're themed collections. There's Perfect Portrait, which is all of your different skin tones, Bright and Vivid, and then the ones that I'm going to use here. So we've got Floral Sensation and Natural Landscape. I've checked online and these are still available if you're interested. They're around about £12 to £15 for all 4 boxes. So genuinely good value, I think. So I've scribbled a few little swatches on a scrap piece of card just to check which shades I think blend well together. And I'm just going to start colouring. So I'm not by any means a professional colourer. I have taken a few classes from Kit and Clouder, run by a girl called Alice Keegan over in Australia. Amazing company if you actually do want to get into colouring as a hobby. She trains you how to colour with pencils or with alcohol markers. You can check out the free classes and then join the Facebook group, which is really friendly, really supportive. And if you do love it, she does monthly classes as well, so you can learn different techniques every month and colour different images. I love it from a mindful, relaxing kind of point of view if I'm watching TV and I really want to take the time and get that realistic look. But when I'm card making, I usually just want faster results. I am trying some of the techniques that I've learned there though. So I'm using flicking strokes to try and get my colours to blend, so you leave tiny little gaps in between the little flicks so that your next colour can kind of sit alongside and it makes a really nice smooth blend. But yeah, I very quickly just get impatient, start colouring just like a kid rather than an artist. So I'm trying to use small circles and light pressure and go over the same area with another shade later to get that sort of blended look. And I am trying to pick out areas of light, medium and dark. So put the darker colour where you think the shadows are going to be, leave the lighter colour for where you think the light's going to be hitting those petals. So if you look on those outer petals, I feel like the light's going to be hitting those, so it's going to be a lighter colour than the centre of the flower where the petals are really closely packed. So you can see there, I am trying to get that bit of contrast, but I'm definitely not professional. I'm just scribbling around. I'll hold this up to the camera for you just so you can see. Look at the foiling. It's fabulous, look. Look at that shimmer. Looks really professional, even though I've just kind of scribbled around for a few minutes. I have speeded up this footage though, so obviously it took me longer than what you're seeing here. But not too long. So I'm quite pleased with that. So I'm going to move on to another card now. I finished those leaves off camera. So on this one, I went for, on the previous one I went for a smooth sort of subtle 3-shade colour blend with all pinks. On this card I'm using a bluey sort of purple shade and blending that with one of the brighter pinks. I didn't want all of them to look the same. Didn't want to just do pink, pink and pink, so this one's got a bit of purple. I really quite like that more arty look. It's a bit less realistic. The way it's, I've still used the purple as my dark shade and tried to pick out the areas of shadow the same as I did on the last card, but I prefer this colour combination, honestly. So I'm trying to focus the darker colours where the shadows would naturally fall, add lighter colours where the petals would more likely catch the light. Again, over at Kit and Cloud, there are proper light source classes and exercises that you can practice on if you're interested in making things look as realistic as possible. You can really, really take your time with it. And honestly, some of the finishes that girl gets, she's amazing. Definitely check her out. However, you can see on here, I've zoomed this one. So I'm scribbling these leaves around, roughly trying for a bit of a gradient, but fundamentally, my biggest concern was making sure I coloured only the leaves and not the gaps in the middle. So I'm just scribbling away, more or less using the lighter shade of green there as just blanket, just colouring the whole thing, but with light pressure, so that there's still some tooth on the paper to grab to sort of when I go back in and add the darker ones where I feel I want a bit more definition. So you can see I'm just adding a bit more dark to the sort of folds in the leaves and to any shadowy bits. And if you look inside, you can see the pressure marks from the pencil colouring. So although it's not bled through like it would with alcohol markers, you can see the uneven surface where the pressure from the pencils has pressed through. So I'm just going to add in this self-adhesive insert there. It's fully sticky on the whole of the back of the insert and then just a strip down the front. So you tuck it into the fold there and it'll fully stick to the back. Close your card and press down, and when you open it, it'll bring that front piece with you. So it's open to where you need to write and you can no longer see those bumpy bits. Okay, so after doing a few cards with the coloured pencils, I fancied a change. That is probably one of the reasons why I never use a full kit. You don't want to do 6 cards all the same, do you? So for this one, I decided to use the Nouveau Shimmer powders. They're watercolour pigment powders from Tonic Studios, and they've got a lovely shimmer to them, as the name would suggest. I love these. I've collected pretty much all of the colours, and it's another product I'll probably never use up because they just last forever. So I'm aiming for a blue to green blended background with yellowy gold flowers. So I'm using the colours Falling Leaves, Blue Blitz, Sunray Crozette and Golden Sparkler. You can see the labels that I've just showed you there. Some of these have many different coloured pigments in, so when the water hits them, they kind of burst into life with lots of different colours, so it's not just a solid yellow or a solid blue. So I'm trying to use them in a sort of semi-controlled fashion, trying to get the blue at the top, the green on the leaves, the yellow on the petals, and the gold in the centre of the flowers. That's kind of the look I'm going for. If you want a really accurate look with these, you can just tap out the pigment onto a work surface or even a paint palette, and then just treat them like normal watercolours. Just add a bit of water and paint with them. But I like the sprinkly effect, where you just tap it onto your card and when the water hits you get that random explosion kind of effect. So I've sprayed the card with water just to try and help the pigment move when it hits. But what's actually happened is those spots of blue have just sunk straight into the card. So honestly, it's a bit of a disaster. I mean disaster in the loosest sense. No one's going to get hurt here. This is just card. I mean, worst case scenario, boo-hoo, something has to go in the bin. It's actually not, it's fine. However, in card making terms, it's a big blue spotty disaster. So this card has just eaten those dots of blue pigment. You can see the ink has kind of spread out, but it's just kept those blue dots. It's kept that core. It looks like blue measles. So you'll see me faffing and faffing and faffing with this card. I keep going because I never want to give up on a thing. So I'm using a water brush and some extra water just to try and tease that green pigment up the stems because they're really fine lines and into the leaves, into the points. That's managed to stay kind of within the lines. That looks exactly as I wanted it to. The petals, I was going for almost a sort of daisy finish. I wanted sort of a gradient with darker yellow at the centre and then faded out to white towards the tips. it's kind of not worked that way. They're just sort of yellow, but it's really shimmery. It's beautiful. And the gold has kind of stayed in the centre, which looks really rich when you're close up to it. But that blue, I can't get over that background. That is, I keep adding more water, I keep adding more pigment, but it is sodden. Look how soggy this piece of paper is. It is drowning, Marianne. Just stop. Stop, walk away, time to call it, let it dry. So, this is how it looks when it dries. I stepped away, I left it at least a full 24 hours, and I've come back to it, and look at that shimmer. It is gorgeous. I put it between some books overnight as well to try and flatten it once it was dry. But look at the warping. It's not salvageable, in my opinion. So I'm going to save those leaves and the flowers. So I've grabbed my trusty Cutter Bee scissors. These are the sharpest scissors I've ever had in my life. They are fantastic. They cut right to the very point, which is quite rare in scissors. I don't know if you've bought cheaper scissors in the past and you know what I mean, but sometimes they're terrible. They only cut, halfway up the blade sometimes. But these are fabulous. So yeah, I'm just fussy cutting these. Again, please don't feel disheartened if you think you can't cut out this fast. I'm not cutting out this fast. This footage is sped up. So I'm just being careful there with this tiny little leaf and the really skinny stem, because I want that half flower there to sort of stay. Well, I want it to stay attached to the stem and the leaves. And then the one with the full head in the background there, I've hacked that straight off its stem because it was overlapping this one. So I'm going to make 2 different cards with this, I think. So I want to save something. I must save something. So that's my thinking while I'm cutting these out. So I just sit there and just listen to the radio, watch a TV show in the background. Just turn your paper into the blade of your scissors and just take your time with it. It's one of those almost mindless things. Obviously, you've got to concentrate on what you're cutting, but you can put it down, you can pick it up. It's not gonna be a problem if you pause or stop for whatever reason. So just wiggling around, and there we go. Put all the spotty blue measle background in the bin. That's gone. And look at these, some shimmery, shiny, beautifully coloured watercolour flowers that I can use on some different cards. So, as if to prove to myself that it was the card's fault the blue background went wrong and not mine, I'm going to make a watercolour background. I'm going to use the same pigments, but this time I'm going to use proper watercolour paper that won't panic if it gets a bit wet. So this block of paper is from Ardyth. It's approximately 11 by 14 inches. It's sort of roughly close to A3, UK and EU size. I'm assuming it's a size that's more common in the American market, not sure. But it's fine. I've torn out a full sheet. Just going to colour it, and then I'll cut it and make more than one card out of it because it's huge. But I might as well just colour the whole sheet while I'm doing it. So I've sprayed the right hand side with water just because I want to show you the difference. So that's me sprinkling the blue on the dry side, and then look when it hits the water on the right hand side. It just bursts into life as soon as it gets wet, this pigment stuff. It's fantastic. So the powder that I'm sprinkling on the left is barely visible at first, but look at that green as it hits the water, and then look at that green on the left. Such a difference with it already being wet. But ultimately, the whole thing's going to be sprayed with water. Look how vibrant these colours are when they get wet. It's fantastic. There's no real rhyme or reason to what I'm doing, except I am roughly aiming for blue at the top, green at the bottom, and then a nice gradient-y blendy bit in the middle if I can. So spraying a bit more water. If you get any lumps of dry powder, make sure to wet it, because otherwise when it's all dry they'll just brush off. But once it's wet, I think there is a binder in this product that's activated with the water. So as soon as it gets wet, it'll stick to the paper, and then even that shimmer doesn't really come off on your hands unless you put far too much on. Obviously the paper can only absorb so much. But yeah, once it's dry it pretty much stays put. So my top tip for working with these powders, and honestly I know I need to take my own advice here, is stop. Just stop faffing. This would have been absolutely perfect maybe 3 or 4 sprays ago, but I still faff with it. I still damp the edges down, make sure it's not gathering at the edges. But look at the full panel when it's dry. It's so watercoloury, it's so shimmery, it's so pretty. And because I used the same colours, it's a perfect match for those flowers. Look at that. Look at that little golden shimmer, because I chucked in some of that Sunray Crozette right at the end. I love it. So now that's all dry, I'm going to grab my rotary trimmer from Tim Holtz. Again, I think it's a tonic build. Untuck these extenders so that I can measure a bit longer. The actual base of the thing measures 6 inches, but then the legs go up to 12. I think they go past 12 a little bit actually. So I decided I want a 7-inch panel for a completely separate card. So I've taken 7 inches off the side and I'll put that away for another day. And then with the rest, I decide that I'm going to make a 6-inch card panel, a 6-inch square card, sorry. So I'm going to cut from this big piece here, I'm going to cut approximately 6 inch by 6 inch. And I want to make sure that I get some of the blue and some of the green on that panel. And then this piece that's green that I've got on the trimmer, I'm not really sure what size that's going to be. So I grabbed the nearest blank cards that I've got without having to get up from my desk, because I'm lazy like that. And it doesn't quite fill this card. And I don't really want just a plain green card with a cream edge. And that little flower isn't really big enough to command the whole card on its own. So it didn't quite work as a full panel. So I have a bit of a think, turn it around a few times, chop it down. I think this is about 3 inches wide. And then the full length of the card. And look, I like that now. So that flower all of a sudden looks bigger. It looks like a main focal point because it's hanging off the edge of the background piece. So then I come back to the other side that's got the green and the blue, and then that random blob of gold in the middle. And I'm trying to cut this to 6 by 6, but with some green and some blue. So that's why I've cut some off of each end, rather than just chopping it to 6 inches to start with. And you can see now that messy bit in the middle is kind of it's now in the middle. So I'll be able to cover that up and put that big flower right in the middle. So trimming it all off, trim off the edges where all of the watercolour sort of gathered, and there you go, you see that flower is going to cover that blob. It's going to be great. And I keep these scraps because I can get another card out of them. They're beautiful, they're shimmery, and who knows, I might even make another video. Stay tuned. So I've got this panel and I've got this little flower, and I've realised that the flower has some silver foiling on it, which looks all on its own against the basic cream card. So I've decided to put some silver mirri, so you'll get a skinny silver border either side of that watercolour piece. So I have die cut my sentiment from the middle, because why waste card, right? And then at least this way I know that that's definitely the same silver as well. I don't know if you've ever bought different mirri cards from different companies. They don't always match up. Silver's not too bad. Gold can vary wildly from company to company. So that's the top tip, is just always die cut any smaller pieces, any sentiments, anything else that you need for the rest of the card. Die cut it from the biggest piece, because no one's ever going to know. So why waste another piece? So I'm just going to use my smaller Tim Holtz trimmer here, now this piece has been cut down, just to cut those borders, trying to get them to match. Doing it by eye, that one's gone wonky, I'll have to correct it. I just keep cutting more and more off until I'm happy with it. So there we go, I'm going to tape this on. It's roughly an 1/8 of an inch border as it's all worked out. So you can see the messy bit there where I've cut the happy birthday. But again, no one is going to notice. Once that's sandwiched between the watercolour card and the card base, no one's going to know. Try and make sure that's roughly straight. Okay, I am eyeballing it. I can't be bothered measuring. I do have T-square rulers and all of that, but most of the time you can see by eye whether that's straight enough. So I'm just trimming this up so it's the same width as the card. It really takes some cutting through. That watercolour card and their mirror card is really, really thick. So even those big chunky Tonic Studio scissors, they struggled. But we got there. And I think it's fairly neat. And then look, after the disastrous start, this little flower gets to be the star of the card. And despite the literal weeks that have passed since I tried painting those flowers, this card actually comes together quite quickly in the end. Just takes a few minutes. So I've just popped up the flower head on some foam tape, foam squares, and they're just from the high street. I think those particular ones are from the Works that I'm going to use, but I get them from everywhere. I don't use a particular brand. I just use whatever I come across, whoever's got them on offer, or it's the kind of thing I'll just chuck into another crafty order just to make it up to the free postage level or whatever. But yeah, I think these ones are from the Works. And then I've decided I want the leaves to glue flat. So I'm just using a tape runner from Create and Craft. Again, I've had these years. I've got loads of them. I bulk buy them. I used to bulk buy them when they were on buy one, get one free. So I've got boxes and boxes of those. And then, yeah, so just peeling off the annoying little backers from the foam tape. Again, this is super speeded up because the static was just clinging to my nail varnish for some reason. And there we go. The little flower has made it onto a card. And the shimmery flowery head now is just going to be, the flower head is just going to pop up above that panel and look like it's kind of growing, I guess. And then to glue down the sentiment, I'm using, again from Nuvo, this is a fine tip glue pen. It's very, very liquidy glue. And it's delivered by a ballpoint pen, but the ballpoint's kind of on a spring. I make an absolute hash of this. I've not used this pen before. It's really, really fine, and I'm hoping that over time that glue will sort of thicken slightly, because at the minute it's too runny and I'm not in control at all. So I'm a bit more careful now, just dabbing it on, but far too much came out of this pen. So I pick it up with my reverse tweezers, just trying to not get any glue on my fingers. I pop it down on the card, and then splat it with the back of my hand. And loads of glue oozed out. It's a nightmare. You can see it's all over the front. That mirror card is not mirroring anymore. It's just dull and gluey. Apart from that, it was going so well. So there I am, just desperately trying to rub the glue off. But it's already on my fingers, so it's not great. So I've ended up just tearing off a little piece of kitchen roll here, and I used some alcohol hand gel just to wipe off the glue from the surface and bring back the shine to the mirror card. Just quietly sobbing about the disaster of this card. It looks so simple. It looks so clean and so simple, and we all know that this was anything but simple. But we get there in the end, right? Just keep plodding along, and there's the card. Look at that shimmer, look at that shine. Turned out alright in the end. So next I return to 3 more of the cards that I've previously coloured. The daffodil one looks to have been done by alcohol markers, but I have no recollection of colouring that. It must have been a while ago. There's the pinky purpley one that you saw me colour in, and another yellow one that I have coloured off camera. Again, I don't remember colouring that, but I have done, clearly. There's not really an awful lot more to do to finish these cards, which I guess is the whole point of the kit. Your colouring should be the front and centre of these cards. So I've just grabbed some pre-made sentiments from my stash. There's a few there that I've printed myself at home, but I chose to use the ones from Spellbinders. They come in packs of 4 A5 sheets, 2 white with black text and 2 black with white text. I believe they can be foiled as well, but let's leave that experiment for another day. So I just choose 3 appropriate sentiments and trim them all with the guillotine. I spend an awful lot of time looking at this one, deciding whereabouts it's going to go on that card. So just trim off the one I want. And then think, no, I'm not sure I like it on the right. No, it needs to go further up. No, maybe it needs to go on the left. Oh, maybe it needs trimming a bit more. Does anyone else faff like this? Is this just me? I am the queen of indecision, honestly. It was absolutely fine where it was. No, maybe on the left. No, maybe on the right. No, maybe in the middle. No, maybe at the bottom. Oh, no. Who knows? Who knows where it's going to land? Oh, what about the left? No. What about the right? Who knows? Faff, faff, faff. But I thought I'd leave this little bit of faffing in the video so you can see that it's not just you. And hopefully you can reassure me that it's not just me. So yeah, so I've stuck it on the right, which was exactly the first place I thought it should go. And I've just got a black fine liner and drawn a little wiggly border. That is a tip that I've come to find from Natasha Foot. So if you have a look at the Natasha Foot channel, she is amazing. She makes card making look simple. She just doesn't seem to stress about it at all. She just cracks on, uses her stuff, buys a bit more stuff, uses some more stuff. She's great. I want to get to that stage. But she showed us the wiggly fine line border. And it's just fantastic when, like on these cards, the flower is taking up most of the card and it's already on a card base. So you don't want to be making extra layers and cutting different contrasting frames because there's just no space for it. But a quick little fine liner wiggle around the edge and it looks framed. It's so simple, but it just has such an effect. So we find some more sentiments. The white ones I decided to back onto gold foil because these flowers have some gold foiling in them. So I just thought that kind of matches nicely. And I cut this longer sentiment into two and do it as just two sort of staggered rows and pop them up on some foam strips. So there's much less peeling of the backing to do here. Much easier than the little squares. And that's it. There's those cards done. Thank you so much for sticking with me this far if you're still watching. I hope you're coping with the non-linear thought process that's come from what should have been a simple card making kit. If you've enjoyed wandering through this process with me, please come back and watch more videos. I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot more. If you click a like and subscribe, and then if you want to click the little bell to get notifications, you'll see when I do actually post new videos. I'm hoping they'll be fairly regular from now on, but if you click the bell, you'll get notified. So hopefully this channel is going to help me, A, use all my stuff, and then help you, B, inspire you to use your stuff. Because we've all bought things. We all buy things. That's a separate hobby in its own right. There's the memes all over the internet. You've all seen them. We buy things, we collect things, we hoard things, we organise the things, but do we actually ever cut into and use the things? No. So that's what I'm trying to do. I have got a craft room full of pretty things, and I'm just determined to use some of them up, no matter how old they are, whether they're on trend or whatever. I know it's always tempting to buy the newest products, but I expect many of you are in the similar boat and you need to use your older stash too. So hopefully, even if you don't have this exact kit from this exact company, I've inspired you to dig out something that you've had for ages and just have a go with it. So this square card that I'm working on now is the final card in the video, apart from the bee. I promise, stick with it. We will find the bee at the end. So I've got the 6 by 6 inch square that I cut from the giant watercolour sheet. And I want to do something in the style of Ardyth. If you've not checked out Ardyth's channel, you definitely should. So it's Ardyth. And she's a Canadian crafter. She makes quite a lot of square cards, which is fairly unusual. And she does this quite a lot where she'll line up 2 nesting square dies and cut a skinny frame out of the middle of the background and just leave some negative space, and it looks really kind of graphic and modern. I really like it. So you've seen me umming and ahhing about which of my nesting square dies to use to make the skinny frame, And I eventually settle on a design with a piece of rainbow mirror to fill that gap. So I'm just pulling out all of the pieces. My tape has just ripped off some of that watercolour there, which is really annoying. It's my own fault. The tape's fine, I should have just peeled it slower. I'm cutting out a couple more squares here. So I'm cutting out a rainbow mirror square that's going to go behind that gap and fill the negative space. And I've also cut a piece of white for the very centre, a much smaller card. And my flower I was thinking my flower would go on top of that. So here I am, faff, lining that up, see how I like it. Use the white to cover that gold blob. And then when I put the flower on it, I just did not like the flower on the white. So I try here just to fix that blob, that bit where I torn the colour off. Just tried using just some water and it wasn't moving that. I told you, once it's dry, this stuff doesn't move. So I just knocked out a little extra piece of pigment onto my desk and used it as fresh paint. And it looks a bit dark there, but once it's dry, honestly, you wouldn't notice. So I'm going to stick a load of foam tape on the back of this flower head. I want that popped up in the centre. Apart from that, it's going to be a fairly flat card, so I do like to put a little bit of dimension on my card. So here we go. I'm going to use some... got to give this a quick polish first, because I noticed there was fingerprints all over the rainbow mirror. We don't want that. So, if in doubt, just use your sleeve. It's not like I could have found a cloth or anything. So I'm putting some more double-sided tape around this frame. Again, with double-sided tape, I don't stick to a specific brand. I think this was from The Works, but it'll be from whatever company I was ordering from. I'll just, if you're a few pounds under the free postage amount, I'll just stick some essentials in like that, some consumables. So I've stuck that rainbow mirror at the back. It's really not straight at the back, but who cares? No one's going to see the back. It looks fine from the front. There's no gaps visible. And then this smaller piece that's going to go in the centre, this piece needs to be more accurate. So I'm taking the time, I'm tucking in those tape ends where I've ripped them too big, making sure it's lined up as close as I can to perfect. Make sure the green matches the green and the blue matches the blue. You've got it the right way around. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That looks all right to me. So before I put the flower on, before I actually stick the flower on, while this card is still flat, I'm going to stamp a sentiment. I'm so proud of myself for remembering to do this before I put the flower on. That is not normally what would happen. So I'm going to use this happy birthday sentiment. This is from a company called Visible Image. And it's a stamp set called Go-To Words. And it really is the go-to words. I use this so often. I just love it. They're sized right. They're bold enough but fine enough. They're scribbly enough but also not fancy. They're lovely. Just this lovely little handwritten loopy sort of style. It suits male cards, female cards, old cards, young cards. It's magic. They're just suitable. And there's loads of occasions on that stamp set. So I would highly recommend that one if anyone's interested. I've used the VersaFine Clair pigment ink in their black colour, which they call Nocturne. I had to stamp it a couple of times, give it a really good press down just because of the texture in the watercolour card. Otherwise that ink is usually really, really good, but just the texture on this card meant it needed that little piece of extra effort. And then we're nearly done. It's just a case of slapping a little bit more tape on the back there, peeling all these bits off. Again, this is really sped up. I don't know if it's my nails, I don't know, I end up taking ages peeling these things off. And there we go. Press it down more or less as central as possible. Again, I'm not measuring. I could do, but no. So here's a close-up look at all the final cards that I've made using this kit. I've got the 3 that I coloured with the sentiments added. This is the first one you saw me colour in, I just put a strip of gold down the side just to match the foiling. And then the little flower, and then the square one. And then finally the bee. Look at that bee. So I coloured in yellow and I put the tiniest little bit of blue at the tips of all of those petals and then added a sentiment and done. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.